In section 4-2, we're going to be talking about posting. So the first slide here gives the definition for posting, which is transferring information from a journal entry to a ledger. So in 4-1, we opened up all those ledgers, a ledger for each account that we have, starting with cash, account number 110. We'll have a ledger for each account that we have, and we will transfer information from the journal into the ledger. So we do this so that we can sort all transaction affecting one account into one place. So if we want to know exactly how much supplies we have, we don't go to the journal. We would go to our ledger where we have that specific account to know exactly how much we have. So the post reference column on the general journal is for the account number of the account. We do not fill this in until after we have posted the transactions. So this is the last step in posting, which we're going to talk about on the next slide. But we've said before that we have that post reference column right next to where we have our doc number, where you'd put memo 1, memo 2, etc. Now we're going to be using that post reference column. So here we go. Posting an amount from a general debit column. So up at the top there we have our journal. And on January 2nd, we debited supplies for 165. Notice we're only looking at the general column. We are not looking at cash or sales right now. So just looking at the general column, we are going to transfer the information exactly as it is in the journal into our ledger. So in your notes, steps 1, so where it says steps to posting, step 1, we're going to write the date. So exactly as it is in the journal, we're going to write the date into our ledger. Step 2, we'll write the journal page number. So this transaction was on page number 1. So in our ledger, we write post reference number 1. Step 3, we write either the debit or the credit amount. So the debit or credit amount in this case is a debit of 165. Transfer it over as a debit of 165, exactly as it is in the journal. We're just transferring it to the ledger. Step 4, we need to update the account balance. Well, this is just the first transaction that we're entering into this ledger. So our balance is just what we have so far. So 165 is the new balance. When you think of this balance column, think of it as the running tally for the balance of that account. We're always going to update that every time we put in a new transaction. Step 5, you need to go back to the journal and write the account number. That is the final step. You always want to do that last so that you know when you look at that journal that that line has been posted into the ledger. So that 150 goes back into the journal and we are done posting that transaction. You'd move down to the next line. So we'll move to the next line in this next slide. So again, on January 2nd, now we have Michael Delgado. So we're looking at Michael Delgado's account. Page number 1 is where this transaction came from. So it was a credit of $2,000. So we transferred as a credit of $2,000 from the journal as a credit of $2,000 straight to our ledger. Our new balance is just a credit of $2,000. We have nothing to add it to because it's our first account balance that we're adding. And then finally, the last step, account number 310 needs to go back into the journal. So when we are going through this, again, we are just transferring the amounts. Shouldn't be a ton of thinking involved. We are just transferring the amounts exactly as they are in the journal. We are transferring them into the ledger. So that way we can find the exact amount that we have for each account. So our next slide is what do we do if we have more than one entry listed in a ledger? So we're looking at supplies again. Remember on January 2nd, we debited it for 165. So our balance was 165. Well, now on January 5th, we have another transaction that affects supplies. So we need to transfer that into our ledger. The 5th, page 1, we have another debit amount, debit of 220. So now we have 2 debits. On your note guide, you have a really good reference sheet. So on your reference sheet, it says if it's a debit and a debit, we are left with a debit. So we had a debit of 165 and now a debit of 220. So our new balance is now 385. We added 165 plus 220. Step 5, we go back into the account and put that account number. So that is how you post. We're posting from the general ledger, from the general columns of our journal into our general ledger.